Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I am TRACY PERKINS. Our show today is Dementia Home Care, and I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio. I am a 4-time dementia caregiving survivor and the author of Dementia Home Care, How to Prepare Before, During, and After. And Lori is a passionate advocate for ways to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. She understands change is needed on multiple levels. She's also the host of Alzheimer Speaks Radio, the co-founder of DementiaMap.com, the co-host of Conscious Caregiving with L&L, a new podcast tackling tough topics for our seniors. She is the author of the children's book, Betty the Bald Chicken. Welcome, Lori.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be with you, TRACY. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Oh, I have been looking forward to this so much. I mean, I just love talking to you, and I just want to make sure that we share everything with with our audience here. How did you get into the dementia field, and why did you get into it and change your career? I'm very curious about this.
Well, like most people, I came in kicking and screaming. This was not my idea. My mom ended up living with dementia for 30 years, and it significantly changed my life. So, initially she was told it was just menopause. For like 10 years, she was misdiagnosed. But this was, a long time ago, almost 40 years ago. And then once we got the formal diagnosis, she was really into the journey. And I was selling residential real estate, working with the senior market. And it was actually senior housing that urged me to step into this space. They said, Lori, you're not doom and gloom and give me your money. You are really about helping people live graciously with the disease. And you help people find joy and create it, and that's a need. So I dipped my toe in the water and did a blog, and was kind of shocked that people around the world resonated with our personal story. And then I decided to make a commitment, and I took my life savings and my retirement funds, and I slapped them on the table and said, I'm going to make a difference, big or small. I don't know what that's going to look like. But I want to shift how we deal with this. I want to be inclusive. I want the family's voice to be heard. I want the person diagnosed to be heard. They're the ones that know the disease the best, and they were really left out of the equation. And I thought it was important that we hear from all levels. So again, those diagnosed, family, businesses, researchers, advocates, children. Everyone and anyone who's dealing with this has insights that can help us serve better. And we needed to have a comfortable spot for people to land, because if they're not comfortable having a conversation, we're never, ever going to know what the true needs are. And if we don't know that, we can't serve them.
Fantastic. I can't imagine the amount of time and effort that you have put into this. And I know how I discovered you was first through the Dementia Map. And then, of course, Alzheimer Speaks Radio. Can you tell me and our audience about both of those?
Well, sure. I started with Alzheimer Speaks, which is still there. And I wanted to approach it from a different angle. I wanted to use multimedia. I thought it was basically asinine that we weren't using video and audio to engage people, that we weren't having conversations. And so, I launched the first radio show of its kind, and then started Dementia Chats, which are videos of the true experts, those living with the disease, that discuss the topic and what's going on. And we just kept adding to that. So if anyone goes to our site, alzheimerspeaks.com, there's one whole section that's free resources. There's tons of things there. It'll tell you how to create a dementia-friendly community, about memory cafes, which, both of those topics came from overseas and are fabulous. And then Dementia Map was just launched during COVID. Dave Weidrich, who has the Memory Cafe directory for 6 countries, reached out to me and said, Lori, you're always talking about this on the show. Let's do it, And I was working with another group, and I thought, I just don't know if I have it in me, because we weren't getting where it needed to go. And I had just kind of broken that partnership off. And Dave and I, he said, just tell me your vision. And my vision was always really simple, to be inclusive, to be more than just a resource directory, to get people to understand that everything doesn't have to be in your backyard anymore in order to support you. So Dementia Map has like 150 different categories people can search. It has a calendar of events. It has terminology, because you don't know what you don't know. And wonderful, wonderful blog articles from our members. And we're just growing it slowly. We're not buying lists and just putting people in. We want people that are actually going to respond. So at this point, we have typically small to mid-sized businesses that don't have huge budgets. And people are shocked because they've never heard of all these services, and they're thrilled to find them.
Well, I know I was thrilled to find them. I mean, the minute I saw that, okay, full disclosure here, Lori and I were chatting on LinkedIn, and she was giving a guided tour through her website. If anyone sees her link on LinkedIn that says take this guided tour, her website is so incredible. There are so many functions to it. I mean, she's got blog posts, she's got radio recordings, she's got all these fabulous resources. Tell me about Purple Angel Project. I mean, that to me was very, very intriguing.
Well, the Purple Angel Project, I should, tell people I'm kind of a megaphone. I see something and I want to blow it up and help spread the word. So things like the Memory Cafe and the Dementia Friendly, those came from overseas. So did the Purple Angel. This was actually created by Norms McNamara, who's been living with Lewy body. Gosh, I bet it's been 15 years now. And he said, he was talking with other people with dementia, and he just said, I'm tired of everybody thinking there's only Alzheimer's out there. There's all these other diseases like Lewy body and vascular and frontal temporal. And he said, and some of us have more than one kind of dementia. I want a symbol where people understand that, and that will help us open up the conversation. So Norms created this angel with a globe, and he was, poo-pooed, it'll never work, you can't do it, and it's free to share. And anybody can use it. I actually put it in my mother's obit. People are like, what is that about? And we could have a conversation about dementia. The only thing you can't do is start selling coffee mugs and t-shirts and making money off it, unless you're throwing it back into education and awareness. And I don't even know how many countries and how many advocates there are, or ambassadors for the program. That's how massive it is. And it's just voluntary, and it is free. And it's just a really simple way for us to all work together instead of combating one another. And because so many of these symptoms, as you know, Tracy, overlap.
Oh, definitely. Well, and you and I had this conversation. One of the bloggers that you have on, and I don't remember if it was the Purple Angel Project site or not, but talks about toileting.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very fascinated about it. Can you talk more about that?
Well, gosh, I think I can't remember her name offhand, but her business is called Toilet Talk, and she is absolutely wonderful, and she is an occupational therapist, and that's her whole focus, is talking about toileting, where to put bars, and how to maneuver people, and what equipment should you have, and she's just fascinating. I did a show with her and another gal who represents all these different types of bars that you can use. Most of us think it's just the silver grab bar, and there's so many different options and where you can place them and how you can use them. And it's fascinating. It's just fascinating. In fact, she just came up with a whole guideline that you can download. So if you go to toilettalk.com, you'll be able to find that. She's going to be submitting a blog actually for Dementia Map as well that'll have that in there.
Okay, now Dementia Map is something that I have been recommending to all of my readers just because it is a global resource and my readers are spread hither and gone. And so it's not always easy to get the help you need. What are some of the features that they're going to find specifically? Like, how are they going to search for that on Dementia Map?
Well, first, I want to welcome them to reach out to me, and I'd be more than glad to give them a personal tour. Or a lot of times I'll do tours for support groups as well, or for families. So that is always an option. And they can just email me at Lori, Lori, at alzheimerspeaks.com. And or they can go to the tab on Dementia Map, which is right, if you go to dementiamap.com, there's a logo on the right hand side about tours. You can click on that as well. But they'll be able to find resources. And one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that people felt safe. So you don't have to give us any contact information at all. We're not into tracking you. We want you to feel safe. We know people are screaming. They're tired of being hacked and spammed and bothered. And so people can search by categories. They can search by subcategories. We've kind of packaged them together. They can search by keywords. They can just click on a dot on the map. In the map, you can blow it up and drag it around. Or some people just like to search through the cards. And then, the glossary of terms are there. So a lot of times, I know I sure didn't know what I didn't know till I knew I didn't know it. And it's like, where do I go to find information? So the glossary of terms will have summaries, and then it has articles that pertain and dive a little bit deeper on that. And then we have the resource calendar that has a lot of free events on there. And so that's a great route, that you can go as well. And then, of course, the blog articles, there's a whole bunch of those there, and there's tabs right on the top, to get you to each of those. We have the most current events and blog articles also on the sidebar. So we've tried to make it multi-purpose so it's really easy to maneuver. And our buckets for our tabs are never going to change, because that's one of the biggest complaints people have as well, is I can't find it again. And we wanted people to be able to easily find what they're looking for.
Oh, to me, that is really fantastic because that is one of my biggest complaints. Because if a link moves and you can't find the link, it's really hard to search for it because it may not come up again. So I just love that you guys did that. And then now I'm going to lead us off on a totally different tangent here for a second. You wrote a book that I just love this book. It's called Betty the Bald Chicken. It's a children's book, but it's lessons in how to care. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey with Betty the Bald Chicken?
Well, Betty came to me in a dream, and I'm old enough to know that if I don't get up and write it down, I'm not getting any sleep. And so I've used it as a keynote for years and years. And my audience has always asked me to put it in book form. And I didn't get around to doing that. We just published it in March of this year. But I'm really glad I didn't publish it because it would have been different. I would have promoted it as just an Alzheimer's kind of dementia book. And actually, Betty's story is about any time you don't belong. And I used to say it was about any time you didn't fit in until I heard Bree Brown make the comment of a new study because she thought she wanted to get to the crux of why people don't fit in. And in her study, she said she was shocked. She says it's people don't want to fit in, they want to belong. Fitting in is changing yourself to being accepted. And belonging is just being your authentic self where it's really easy. And that's really what Betty is all about, finding your tribe. And that changes over time. So we've all been ostracized where we don't fit in. We've all walked away from someone in need for whatever reason. And, I always like to say, we're all part of the caring corral. And that's when we accept and we pull people in and we just accept them for who they are. And the goal of the book is to really get people to talk about how we care because we don't consciously have that conversation. And, with the state of mental health and the craziness in the world, I think it's critical. And so it's written as a children's book. Adults are going to buy it thinking they're going to teach kids, but kids are brilliant and they teach us a lot. And the feedback we're getting all over from teachers and counselors and psychiatrists to everyday people is this is a book for all ages. Everyone can relate to it. And it has questions in the back that make you think, how do you want to show up? How do you want to be treated? And how do you want to care for yourself? Because that's another thing we don't talk about much.
Well, and I love that you leave it as what most people probably feel like a cliffhanger, and then allow the audience to choose their own adventure by using those questions. To me, that is such a great jumping off point to start the conversation. And I can see why people want to belong and why you would want to use that for mental health as well as dementia and all sorts of different topics, including perhaps children with autism, because there are so many places this book could be used. It's just a phenomenal book.
Yeah, I would really like to get it into the schools for bullying and then just all the stress they're under these days with the shootings.
Mhm.
Instead of, when you're reaching out to help somebody, a lot of times kids think that they're tattling, they're being a snitch. And that's not what reaching out is about. It's about helping them and helping your community at large. And that's a shift that we have to take. We have to change. But it can be used for divorce. It can be used for death, any chronic illness. Maybe you've moved or changed careers, and you just, like you say, you don't feel like you fit in or you belong. How do you get comfortable? You know how do you live well in that situation and maneuver out of it without a tragedy?
And it's so important because we are having some issues obviously everywhere, and we don't know how necessarily. If we don't have something to model after, it's difficult to just grasp it from straw. You just can't. So I just think it's wonderful that you have done this. Now, I also know that you have started a new podcast that you are doing that we talked about when we were doing the intro to the show, the conscious caregiving. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I've partnered with Lance Slayton with All Home Cares Matters, and he's just absolutely fabulous. He has his own podcast under that name. But the two of us have joined forces, and once a month we're tackling tough conversations. So we just started it in June, and our first one was what the heck was it on now? It was on elder abuse, and then we did seniors and driving. We did end of life. We've done scams. And in fact, tomorrow we're going to record one on seniors and traveling. And, all these things they're so complicated, but they're things people don't talk about. And Tracy, you and I have had this conversation. So often people wait until there's a crisis and things hit the fan, and then everybody's chaotic. And we need to get these conversations more comfortable and people talking about things earlier on.
Oh, I totally agree. I if you don't talk about it ahead of time, then there are it's like cascading events. Everything just goes wrong and keeps going wrong, and it's hard to stop it, and to get your hands around it. And just having something out there to demonstrate that is so powerful because, again, especially since we've come out of COVID, the isolation, and we're back amongst each other, it's we've kind of forgotten or we
Yeah.
don't know where to look. So I just admire you for doing that. And what other things are you working on, by the way?
Well, can I add one more thing in on
Oh,
conscious
absolutely.
caring?
Yeah.
We try to do them in a panel atmosphere because we want to hear different voices. We try to go in non-biased. I mean, we all have our biases, but we really want to have an open conversation, and we also want to give people a ton of resources that they can dig into after the show. And to me, that is critical. A lot of times you hear about things and then you don't know where to go, and then you're too busy to kind of search it out. So we want to have a lot of clickable things for people to be able to access with that. Other things that I'm doing, one of the things I'm excited about is our Dementia in the Arts program. And Dementia in the Arts is a program that I do with Mary Crescenzo, who's a master artist. And what we've done, you can find these on Alzheimer Speaks under our free educational programs. Um, we interview people living with dementia and they showcase their art. And it is spectacular. We have people of all different levels. Some people have done art all their life. Many have never done art at all. And it's a stigma buster because people go, well, they can't do that. They can't learn, but they can. They, put a paintbrush or I don't care if it's a colored crayon or a colored pencil, whatever it is. People do photography and woodworking and jewelry making and etching, and they do digital art. They do oils. They do watercolors. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. Uh, but they also explain how they adapt their art as their symptoms change, which is really helpful for everyone. But the common theme that comes over and over and over again is how they get in the zone. And when they're in the zone, their symptoms decrease. And I just find that absolutely fascinating and beautiful on multiple levels. And I wish I would have known that on my mom's journey.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I wish I would have known that too because I would have done that with my dad. I mean, you think about the things that you did to keep your mom active or distracted, and then not again. You were talking about not knowing what you don't know,
Mhm.
and so I am so impressed by this. Um, what? Hold on just a sec. Okay, sorry about that. What other projects are you guys working on?
Well, I'm always open to new things,
Okay.
constantly, and so right now, I'm just trying to kind of stay afloat. I do a lot of speaking and training, so I'm, heading down to Texas here in November for a conference on the 10th down in the Panhandle with the agency on aging. I'm going to do a full day program down there, which I absolutely love. We're going to be doing a screening of the film A Timeless Love, and then what I do, I call a little bit different. I call my style emotional based training. I want people to laugh and cry. I want them to hear real stories. I want them to be inspired. I want to give them short tips that they can easily apply. So, one of the other things that people can find on the website, again, under that educational programs, is tools. So I have one, it's like a trifold you can go ahead and print out that has all kinds of communication tips. Underneath that free educational resources, there's many different little graphics that you can click on. But that talks about, having good eye contact, smiling, just having a smile can diffuse a situation, agreeing with somebody like you're agreeing with me right now, nodding your head,
Yeah.
um, using multisensory engagement, little simple things that we don't think about. And what I love about that whole tip sheet that I pulled together, it's good not just for dementia, but anybody.
Mhm.
And sometimes we are so busy trying to figure out what our answer is going to be that we're really not paying attention to the conversation. There's also your memory chip, which I developed, and I'd be more than glad to share that with you on
Yeah.
how that works if you want. Um, like everyone else, there was a day I was not a very gracious daughter to my mom, and I snapped at her when she repeated herself 45 times in 10 minutes. And then, of course, you have this great guilt. And even though they might not remember this later, you do. And it's just devastating because you should have been better. So I interviewed people around the world, both professionals and families, and I asked them three questions. The first is, what do you want your person to know? Staff said, well, we want them to know that we're here and we support them. And families typically said, well, we want them to know that we love them. And what I realized in an instant was we think our words are going to get that message through. But as dementia progresses, again, we need to use multisensory. And what that means is maybe you're going to wear the same cologne. So that's going to be another avenue for them to connect to you when they smell that cologne. Maybe it's going to be your touch. Maybe it's going to be your tone. Maybe you're going to have a certain phrase you say when you enter and when you exit. Like with my mom, on my way out, I would go after a while and she'd go crocodile. And I would get scolded by people and they would say, you can't say that. She's not a child. And I'm like, you don't know our situation. You don't know anything about dementia. You don't realize she's gone back in time, you know, uh, far back in time. And this was a phrase she said to my daughter. She said to me, her mom said to her, her grandma said to her. This gives her great comfort. So sometimes we have to tell people, don't judge us, with that, but figure out what those multisensory things are for you and be consistent. And then I asked people, what do you have to focus on? And staff said, well, I've got a job description, and family said, I have a to-do list. And I was like, good, I've got a to-do list too. And I kind of let that one go. And then about 2 months later, I woke up in a cold sweat and bounced out of bed going, oh my gosh, I missed something. And it wasn't a word, Tracy. It was this feeling of, this isn't how I pictured my life. And what I realized in that kind of twang in their voice was when they have an emotional need, um, they can't be person centered. They can't put that person first because, as a human, we always have to protect ourselves first, consciously or unconsciously. So at that point, I knew that I still had to do my to do list, but I first had to refocus on that wasn't my priority of care. And it might sound kind of silly, but I needed to focus on, was she safe? Was she happy? Was she pain free? So I basically came down to the base of Maslow's theory and said, what's most important? And when I focused on those three things, safe, happy, and pain free, I delivered my tasks different. I was able to be a daughter again. I could sit on the couch in silence and just be content because she was. It was amazing, the power in that. And then the third question I asked people was, what do you want to remember? And the sad part was staff said, well, I really don't have to remember anything. And because we've trained them to be task oriented and not to be relationship based. And families said, I want to remember the person who was. And to that, I would say, look in the mirror. You've disappointed many in your life. You've made many choices that others haven't been happy with. That's called adjusting to life. Look at the whole person. Look at the beauty in each. And, when I speak, I have a collage I put up of my mom. And when I put it on the screen, the audience just gets quiet, and I let the pause set in, and I say, I know what you're thinking. That lady's had a lot of bad hair days, but a bad hair day doesn't mean you didn't have a good day. How many of us now say, I'm just going to binge watch TV. I'm not even going to take a shower. I'm just going to sit in my jams all day. But we don't allow a person with dementia to do that. Joy looks different as the disease progresses. So your memory chip, feel free to download it. There's a video that explains it on the site as well. And there's also your memory journal, and then some other tips on living well with dementia in the tools section.
So let's talk about journaling. Obviously, writers, but now for non-writers, journaling's not quite as easy. Do you have prompts for journaling in your journals?
Well, it's not a journal. It's one page.
Okay.
And what I tell people, and again, there's a video that goes with it. What I tell people is bring in a picture or, write a phrase. I mean, sometimes it's just who's in the picture, because people don't know who's in the picture. So just finding out who's in the picture or what was the situation. What I found was my folks' friends brought pictures in. I heard the funniest stories that they never told me growing up because they thought, one was over like a chicken wing feast, and my dad and my godmother got into this eating frenzy. There was this big contest, and I can't even remember how many wings they ate, but it was like, it was unbelievable. But they were laughing so hard telling the story about my dad and my godmother, Dorothy, eating these wings. And, we were able to relive that with my mom. Maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's a haiku, maybe it's just what somebody thinks of somebody. Maybe it's a joke that's been repeated 45 times, but it just makes them smile because it makes them remember that person. Journaling can come in all different ways. It doesn't have to be in book format. It doesn't have to be grammatically perfect. It's just jogging the memory. That's what it is to me anyways. I don't know. What is it to you, Tracy?
The Well, first of all, I love the description you just gave because getting back those memories. Um, for me, I what I did is we created memory books, and I would use that to follow timelines. So for me, just using those pictures and bringing back memories, and then being able to figure out where my dad was. That Now for journaling, what I ended up doing for myself, and this is where I help had material for my book. Literally, I wrote down all the funny things and all the biggest disasters I ever had, because then I could get the emotion out about it, and then come back later and look at it and figure out why it was funny. Because you know, it's the comedy is disaster plus time. And after I had enough emotional distance, I go, okay, I'm not doing that again, and now I know where I went wrong. So I used it for a twofer, I guess you could say, because I just needed to look at it, but I needed perspective too to back up. So, but having those fun memories, oh my God, I love those. And I just love that you have created these. I don't want to say it's a pulpit. I want to say you have this resource library that is just so phenomenal for people to dig through. And if you were going to point somebody to one thing, if they didn't know where to start, where would you direct them?
I would send them to the free educational resource page, and they'll be drawn to, I think, whatever is good for them. I think the dementia chats where you hear people and see people speak with dementia is a stigma buster. It's a great learning tool because a lot of times you can't ask your loved one that question, but you can get insights from someone else living with the disease. But maybe someone's going to be drawn to our poetry section. Maybe they write poetry or they like to read it. We have people that submit, poems, and we post those there too. So there's all kinds of things there, and I think people will just be drawn to what makes sense for them.
Oh, that is so fantastic. I love going through that website and making discoveries that I didn't even know existed. And even though I am not caregiving for anybody right now, it's just knowing that that's there and being able to tell people where to look. Um, it's so incredible. Um, Now, one other thing I want to talk about just real quick, going back to the, um, no, I just went, uh, it's morning here. Forgive me.
Not a problem. Totally get
Oh,
it.
oh God. So it had to do with when you were doing the dementia map, and you have stuff going all over the country or all over the world. Do you also have support groups listed on Dementia Map?
There are some. One of our rules with Dementia Map though is we don't put people in. We want them to put their listings in, and everyone is welcome. Of course, we vet things and stuff, but what we found with support groups is that so many of them are so busy because they're all volunteer that we don't have as many in there as we'd like. Again, if they go to the memory cafes, if they look those up, Dave's got over 1,200 memory cafes that and some are virtual and some are in person. I also, if people go to my site, alzheimerspeaks.com, again, that free educational resources, I have public events. I do one that is virtual twice a month, which is sponsored by Arthur Senior Home Care or Arthur Senior Care. And we meet from like 1 to 3 o'clock, typically on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month virtually. We have people from Belgium, from Florida, New Jersey, and I'm based in Minnesota. And then I also have another one that we meet in person here in Minnesota at the Shoreview Community Center. And we meet for an hour and a half the last Wednesday of the month from 10 to 11:30. And the care partners are in one room, and then respite for their loved one is in another room. But the respite, they have to be able to engage in a group. Um, but those are really, they're just so powerful to connect. And I don't know about you, but I mean, I kind of poo-pooed the whole support group thing, thinking I don't have time. I just don't have time. And I fell into a support group going to visit to see a friend of mine speak. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I really need this. I had no idea. And I was sparked because the facilitator asked one question, and it was, what do you miss the most? And I missed a hug. My mom couldn't reach out and grab me anymore. And it was just those little things that we kind of push away, but we need to deal with those. We need to understand the impact of when somebody doesn't say our name anymore, and we question, do they know us? And typically you will find out later on down the road, they'll have a moment of lucidity and they do know you. They just can't always speak it.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm feeling a little misty at the moment, but especially the conversation about the support group and asking that question of you, what do you miss the most? I too fell in backwards into a support group, not knowing that I needed it because I had the favorite lie, I can do it all, and then until you can't.
Yep.
So, and then when I did find a support group, it was like, oh my heavens,
Yeah.
what a
The,
huge difference. And I just recommend support groups. Go ahead.
I was just
Go
going to
ahead.
say it's so critical because one of the number one things that I hear from people all around the world is they feel isolated and alone. Their friends and family kind of drop by the wayside because they're uncomfortable with it. And when you develop that peer group again, you really do feel whole again. Sometimes we're trying to convince our siblings or someone else in our family of, mom really needs this or dad's doing that. And they come and visit and go, they're fine. They're fine. What are you talking about? Because they pulled it together during that time frame. And it's just so nice to talk to people that truly understand.
Oh, I wish we had more time because we're running out of time now. But Lori, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's been an honor, Tracy.
So, to the rest of the audience, I want to thank you for spending your time with us. We'll be back on November 20th. Our guest will be Dr. Les Griffith. Dr. Griffith is a physician, author, lecturer, and public speaker who has been involved in educating medical students and the public for over 40 years. He is the co founder of Bastyr University, and for the last 10 years, he has been researching the endocannabinoid system and its relationships to disease and its role in regenerative medicine. In the meantime, you can go over to our YouTube channel at USA Global TV and Radio and look for Dementia Home Care playlist, where you will find all of our past